Hi guys, this is jason.com and I'm here with the review of the POCO M4 Pro 4G. We're dealing here with a mid-range phone which has some surprises. We've tested quite a few POCO handsets till now, including the POCO X3, also the POCO F3, and did some hands-on at Mobile World Congress, actually with this model which was unveiled on the floor of Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. The POCO M4 Pro 5G was already launched last year and this one came in 2022. It's got the old school Helio G96 CPU inside. It's a stylish phone, although it has a huge 5000 mAh battery inside, and it comes with an AMOLED screen with a 90Hz refresh rate, good enough for some games out there. It's running on MIUI 13 and it's priced at around $180, which is not half bad if you ask me. Now, as far as the design is concerned, the device has a plastic back, a glossy one, which draws fingerprints and lint, and also a plastic frame with flat edges for a better grip. It's also got IP53 certification, which means it's dust and splash resistant, and I have to admit it's much bigger than other 6.43-inch screen phones I've used lately. When I say bigger, I mean the whole footprint, the height and the width. It's reasonably slim at 8.1 millimeters, and I would say decently heavy at 179 grams, not bad. So the camera module has personality, especially in the yellow version of the device. That's my favorite. You can tell it's a POCO from afar. It's pretty well built, and now it's time to discuss other things like, for example, the display. The screen we're using right here, well, this one is an AMOLED, 6.43 inches in diagonal, with a Full HD resolution, 90Hz refresh rate and Gorilla Glass 3 protection. Aside from the Gorilla Glass 3, we also have a plastic layer on top, once again for protection. Now, when it comes to the visual experience, we have here a test clip, and I'm going to show it to you right now. Okay, so this is what the AMOLED panel looks like. It's quite bright and crisp. It's got wide view angles, very solid contrast even in the full sunlight of the late spring, deep blacks, and the colors aren't as crazy as I've seen on other AMOLEDs. The pixels have a pentile matrix arrangement, and moving further, we did a bunch of tests and let's see what came out of that. So first of all, we measured the brightness and achieved a very impressive 558 lux units, one of the brightest POCO phones we've ever tested. It goes above Samsung Galaxy A52, above Motorola Moto G50, G60 and G60s. Still is below the Oppo Reno 7 Lite and the POCO F3. Now we go further and we go inside the phone. We're going to find a bit of a compromise, a not so fresh CPU. The MediaTek Helio G96, it's a 12nm processor, octa-core, also present on the Redmi Note 11s and the Realme 8i. Now in the current case, it's accompanied by a quantity of 6 gigs of RAM and 128 GB of storage plus micro SD. Keep in mind, it has a dedicated slot. The phone doesn't overheat, doesn't suffer from lag, except from a few minutes after you power it up and when it has multiple things going on in the background, or for example when it's performing an update. Those are examples of moments when it could run into lag. Now, we also did a bunch of benchmarks, so let's see how those panned out. In Antutu 9, we're just above the Moto G60 and Redmi Note 11, while in Antutu 8, we're once again above the Moto G60 and G50, while at the same time surpassing Huawei Nova 9 SE, but we're below the Moto G60s and the Redmi Note 10 5G. In Geekbench 5, the multi-core subtest, we are above Vivo V21, which is not bad, and above the Oppo Reno 5 5G, but we scored below the Xiaomi Mi 11 Lite 4G and the OnePlus Nord Core Edition 5G. When it comes to the GPU, this is the test for it, 3D Mark Slingshot Extreme ES 3.1, and here we surpassed Realme 8i and the OnePlus Nord N10 5G. Still, we're below the Moto G50 and the Galaxy A72. This phone fits between the Realme 8i and the Galaxy A72, slightly below POCO M4 Pro. That's what I found in all of these benchmarks. Now, when it comes to the temperature test, we have it here. In benchmarks, we achieved 32.7 degrees Celsius, so I would say there's no overheating. And in games, we achieved 30 degrees Celsius. Once again, no overheating and a pretty cool phone, one of the coolest ever. You can see it's placed on the 6th spot. Now, as far as the battery is concerned, we have a 5000 mAh unit here with 33 watt charging, and on paper we're promised to get a full charge in 58 minutes. Now, when it comes to the battery tests, Here we are. The video playback one is pretty impressive with 17 hours and 8 minutes. Those 17 hours and 8 minutes means that we surpassed the POCO M3 Pro 5G by 2 hours and the Huawei Nova 9 SE. We're below the Redmi Note 11 and the Oppo Reno 7 Lite. When it comes to continuous usage, we achieved 15 hours and 11 minutes, which is great. We surpassed the Huawei Nova 9 SE and the POCO M3 Pro 5G, the latter by 4 hours. We stayed below the Oppo Reno 7 Lite and the Redmi Note 11, just so you know. Charging is done in 55 minutes, the full charge, and after 30 minutes you're all set for 67% of battery charge. There are also some special battery saver options and an ultra battery saver which extends the battery life by quite a bit. Now let's talk about acoustics. Okay, so we actually have a stereo setup here. This is the bottom speaker and the top one is the earpiece, or rather, I think this is actually the top one, as POCO likes to do like Xiaomi and separate the speakers. We also have an audio jack, so that's good news, and also an equalizer for headphones. It's clear that the bottom speaker is the one doing all the hard work. We don't have much bass, but the high notes are quite fine. I didn't sense much distortion, but the sound was a bit muddy at times, so to say. The voices were natural, so there's that. High notes and natural voices. Also, not the loudest phone I've played with recently in the mid-range segment. We have a bunch of decibel meter tests here. With the acoustic sample test, we achieved 81.7 decibels at the bottom and 77.1 decibels at the top. Considering the bottom result, this is definitely no record breaker. I mean, it beats OnePlus Nord 2 and Galaxy A52s, but stays below hundreds of other phones. Stays below Realme 8i, or below Oppo Reno 7 Lite. In games, it reaches 98 decibels, which is, I would say, okay. At the same time, it's above the Realme 9 Pro Plus and the Vivo Y70, but below Huawei Nova 9 SE and below the POCO X3 NFC. By the way, it's the exact equal of the Oppo Reno 7 Lite in this test. Now, when it comes to the cameras, I'm going to start with the front one. It's a 16 megapixel shooter with Full HD video capture and HDR, while at the back side we have a triple camera setup with AI. The main camera is a 64 megapixel shooter, then we have an 8 megapixel ultra-wide camera and the 2 megapixel smaller camera for the macros. We have an LED flash and we're limited to Full HD video capture. Now, as far as the gallery is concerned, I have it here. And as you can see, we have quite a few shots, almost 200 of them. I'm going to start with the selfies because I'm particularly impressed by those. I wasn't expecting this. It can even fight several so-called selfie phones out there. I'm loving the details here and the texture. And the thing is that those images, those selfie images are very crisp. Also very good separation between my head and the background, courtesy of the bokeh feature. Truly impressive, I have to say. Everything is spot on. The details of the face, the brightness of the eyes, and the texture of the skin, the texture of the clothes. So that's not a coincidence. It repeats itself over and over again, and the selfies are actually, I would even say, one of the selling points here. Even in full sunlight, when the contrast is too intense, still you can get some likable selfies to post on social media. So far so good. Now, the back camera isn't half bad either. Now, this is a regular shot, and this is the ultra-wide shot. It's a bit less impressive in details, and also at times it's a bit washed out. There's that. So I would say that the colors red and blue are beautiful here, beautifully represented, but the sky has an off color. It's a bit too light blue compared to the real thing. Okay, we have some nice close-ups here of those little toy horses, and several macros later on. I'm pretty sure we have some here, or better said, attempts at macros, because not all of them came out the way I wanted them to be. So it takes a few attempts, but in the end you may get something useful like I got here. And if you want more colors, we definitely have that. Let's try and see. This is a regular shot with some very nice colors, by the way, and pretty crisp image and a lot of details. The same sequence with ultra-wide. It's not half bad, but it's a bit more washed out. I've seen worse, to be honest. And we also have this vegetation piece. Compared to other mid-range phones, I don't see any overexposure or any problems with the green hue here, and that's a big plus. So all in all, I would say one of the better POCO phones out there in the mid-range department, definitely better than the POCO M3 series. It's an upgrade, and that's exactly what we wanted. Now, this has been a daytime scenery. I would say it's comparable to the Oppo Reno 7 Lite, and at times with the Huawei Nova 9 SE, except for the whole resolution thing. Okay, so it's time for the low light shots. We have quite a few of those here. One word to remember, or actually two of them. Night mode. Without a night mode, the pictures aren't impressive, but with night mode, they can actually be posted on social media. Of course, you can avoid taking ultra-wide shots. They're very dark, noisy, and they totally elongate the light sources. But I would say that the zooming is underwhelming. And once again, without the night mode, the shots are pretty mediocre, nothing special. So night mode is the key to creating images like this, which is pretty good for tourists and actually one of the better ones in the POCO world. That's about it. This is the low light gallery with a few more shots here. Keep in mind, use the night mode, which at times may exaggerate with brightness, so you're going to have to decide when and how to use it. That's it regarding the photos. Let's talk about the videos. So let's see the videos. I'm going to rely on this app here, MX Player, and we have 9 videos. Didn't focus on the video aspect too much because it only films in Full HD 30 frames per second. And this is the first clip where we have a very vivid image. It's very bright, actually so much so that I have to tone it down a bit from the video player. The sky is a bit unrealistic color wise, but this camera is surely light hungry. I mean, the colors are vivid, and I would say that the blues and greens are decent. However, the exposure is too high for my taste. Next up, we have the selfie video, which, just like the selfie photo, is above expectations. It's actually not bad. The contrast is a bit too intense, but I've seen worse, to be honest. So, not that bad, and the focus is kind of cool. Okay, another set of colorful video captures. Nice yellow for that motorcycle. There's a detail lost in the distance, especially in the tree branches. But I like the fact that the panning doesn't make the image tremble. Speaking of trembling, we have a stabilization test here, which is not half bad, once again, for a phone of $200, maybe even less. Not that bad. And it's not the only stabilization test. We did an extra one, where we actually descended stairs, as you can see for yourself. And there's not a big trepidation or vibration of the image, once again considering the segment we're at. So not bad, but also I don't feel that this is a memorable phone when it comes to the video, except for maybe the stabilization and the selfie part. But phones, 4G phones in the entry-level department are getting good these days. We're done with the video capture during the day. This is during the night time. Nothing to write home about. There are reflections. It's a bit dark and noisy, also shaky and slightly muddy here and there. There's also the color that is closer to a mustard hue rather than a realistic yellow. So there's that. Okay, we're done with the camera. Let's talk about other things like connectivity. Okay, so connectivity. We're dealing here with a 4G phone, as I keep mentioning. It's a dual nano SIM handset. It has Wi-Fi dual band. There's Bluetooth 5.0 here, as well as GPS and GLONASS. There's also NFC, AGPS, BDS, Galileo, and an infrared emitter here at the top, so you can control your TV set or TV sets in bars to annoy people during matches. This is an USB-C 2.0 port at the bottom. The calls were decently loud and pretty clear. When it comes to the speeds, we have a good old speed test here. We can show you some results that we achieved. So when it comes to the Wi-Fi test, we achieved 331 megapsecond downloads and 359 megapsecond uploads. When it comes to 4G, 51.2 megapsecond downloads and 62.9 megapsecond uploads. I would say these are decent values for an entry mid-range phone. Now, the software. In spite of this being MIUI 13, it's applied on top of Android 11, not 12. You can see here the newsfeed to the leftmost home screen. This is the multitasking department split into columns. We have an app drawer which is split in, I would say, categories. We have the separated control center area with the quick settings and also the separated notification department, but you can couple them with a special option. You also have the widgets, which are basically unchanged from MIUI 12 and MIUI 12.5. The new widgets and the new widget picker will come with MIUI 13 based on Android 12. Now, aside from that, we're using the fingerprint scanner from here in the power button to unlock the phone. And you can also see that we have activated the always on display with an inspiring message, but you can also customize it with various other symbols and texts. Now, aside from that, some of the more important options here: connectivity, always on display, sound and vibration, notifications, wallpapers, privacy protection. We have it here. You see here the apps which have been granted permissions to certain aspects of the phone. We got the battery options, apps, digital well-being and parental control, special features. You also have a sidebar, believe it or not. We have a floating window for an extra level of multitasking. And second space if you want to pretend like you have two phones in one. So that's basically it. And I would say that's about it settings wise. Now, as far as the pre-installed apps are concerned, worth mentioning, well, we have Booking.com pre-installed. We have FM radio on board, by the way. We have a music player. We have Mi Remote, where you can put to good use your infrared emitter and control this type of device. We have the Mi Video player. We have a note-taking application called Notes. As usual, inspired quite a bit from the Notes app from, iOS. This is the virtual keyboard, pretty comfy. And one of the most useful apps that's available here is this one called Security. It's basically your hub for the well-being of the phone. You got a cleaner for the memory, a security scanner, a battery booster, speed booster, a deep cleaning, Facebook cleaner, app lock, block list, data usage test network, and even gamers get their own features here in the Game Turbo department. So that's pretty much it as far as the phone is concerned. I think it's high time we talked about the verdict. So this POCO M phone is actually the first POCO M which I'm enjoying in its price range. On the Pro side, it looks very cute in yellow. Sadly, I have the black version. It's got an IP rating, which is always a plus. And I should probably also mention it has a bright and crisp screen. Possibly the best screen I've seen on a POCO series handset, maybe except for the POCO F3. Solid battery life, great selfies, videos and photos, okay main camera, decent Full HD capture considering the price tag. It has an audio jack, it has stereo speakers, it has an infrared emitter, it has IP certification, has a microSD card slot and a pretty good night mode. Those are the pros. Now when it comes to the cons, well, the back draws a lot of fingerprints, lint and dust. The performance is rather modest. The CPU is definitely dated. And also I should probably also mention that this is Android 11, not Android 12. By now we should have Android 12 on it. The main camera doesn't deliver 4K video capture, which sometimes appears these days even in this price range. And I would say that the speakers didn't impress me. There's a bit of exposure when the filming. And for a 6.43 incher, it's a rather massive phone comparing it to other 6.43 inch phones out there. In the end, I've got to say that, as I said before, it's one of the best POCO M series phones, if not the best so far. The biggest surprises were the selfie camera, aspects of the main camera, and I would also say the battery is very solid, and I feel it's good for the young audience. They feel like the target for this type of phone, considering the selfie, the good looks of the yellow version, and the large battery life, since the young people are always on the go. So that's pretty much it. It makes a good first phone for a teenager. That's my impression. That's it from gsn.com. This has been the review of the POCO M4 Pro 4G. Goodbye.